As promised, I'll show you how to put together a gun like this, what to look out for, and mostly, how you can do this relatively on a budget. It's going to be helpful if you have a base gun, as some parts will be reused from that, like the gearbox, lower receiver, hop-up chamber if it's a decent one, etc. That being said, let's start with the core of this gun, the gearbox. I had to Dremel out this part to accommodate the Titan II. Installing said Titan is pretty easy, especially if you did that in an AEG previously. Things to look out for are the wires being neatly tucked away and not contacting the trigger or obstructing any sensors. Next, the HPA engine. I chose the Pulsar S because it was the cheapest engine on the market around its launch, while also offering a Bluetooth optical FCU. This whole bundle, the Pulsar S and the Titan II, cost around €400. Mine is from the first batch, hence the pulper nozzle. When installing the engine, make sure there is no play front to back and that the gearbox can close properly. For the trigger, we all know an adjustable one is standard in 2024, so I went with the Max style E trigger, which I painted myself to match the build aesthetic. Before closing the gearbox, make sure to also install the top board that is part of the Titan sandwich, and that should be all. Now, with single solenoid HPA systems and open bolt systems, alignment is very important. If your gearbox does not have them, I suggest tapping an M2 or M3 hole around this area of the gearbox, which will help with aligning it to the receiver and hop-up chamber left to right. The most common indicator you have an alignment issue would be BBs curving left or right around the 20 to 30 meter mark. In my case, the gearbox was offset to the right, so a screw on the right side will convince it to stay true to the middle of the receiver and hop-up chamber. Next step is to install the gearbox into the receiver, and if you ever took an AEG apart, this should be a walk in the park. Hammer the gearbox pin in, install the rear receiver pin, and check that the selector is doing its job. In my case, since the gearbox is not part of the gun that the receiver came from, I need to install the spring guide now, as it won't have any space to go in later. Install the magazine catch, attach the back cap, and that should be the lower receiver part complete. Let's move to the upper receiver, if you can call it that. This part is 3D printed, and it was my first time working with this file from creator AGS. It can be found on Cults3D, link in the description. I like this implementation, since it does not require you to mill or cut the top of the gearbox in order to fit it. To complete this assembly, you will need a piece of carbon fiber tube, 30mm outer diameter, 28 inner. This can be found on Amazon or even cheaper AliExpress. I paid for 1 meter of this tube, around €24, and I have plenty left over to make another upper, a buffer tube, or a number of tracer cases to go nicely with this upper. A cutting pattern to properly mate this carbon tube to the 3D printed upper is provided by AGS in the file package, but be aware, you may need to cut more than the template calls for. A front thread adapter is necessary, and this can be tackled a number of ways. You can make your own, as I did, out of aluminium on a lathe, which would be the more sturdy and permanent solution. You can also use a pistol tracer adapter and epoxy it to a 3D printed bushing that attaches to the front of the carbon tube, or 3D print the whole front piece with threads, which won't be the strongest option, but is the easiest to make. This upper is designed to take a max hop-up chamber, so most other chambers won't fit. I tried a Gate Eon chamber, a stock double eagle one, and none of them fit. For the barrel, I went with a Prometheus one, 6.03mm inner diameter. Length is a personal preference, but 155mm should be plenty enough for this gun's purpose. The bucking is a Maple Leaf Super Macaron in yellow. Gate does not recommend this bucking for the Pulsar S due to the longer lips it has. It can cause feeding issues, but I got lucky in this case. Assembling the upper onto the lower is super easy, as any other AEG. Just slide it on without having to worry about the charging handle. If you follow the cutting template provided with the upper, this window should line up with your hop-up adjustment wheel. Insert the front pin of the receiver, and that takes care of the main assembly. Keeping in line with the budget side of this build, the grip with integrated regulator is also 3D printed, and various models for specific regulators can also be found on Cults3D. This specific one was designed by a friend and teammate of mine, and if you want the 3D model too, you can find him in the comments section. The regulator is a generic one I had lying around, can be found again on AliExpress for relatively cheap. The outer shape is a copy of a Polar Star regulator, so all the grips designed for such regulators will fit this one. You'll need to get a press fit connector, 6mm tube to 1/8 inch NPT thread. These are readily available on Amazon, but be careful as you'll need one with an Allen key slot cut in the middle. After you install the bare bones regulator in the grip, you have to insert a 4mm Allen key all the way through the regulator and then fish the NPT connector to the regulator. A bit of Teflon tape ensures this will be airtight. On the bottom, you can either install the gauge that came with the regulator or use one of these 1/8 inch NPT caps to block it nicely. With the regulator installed in the grip, we can mount it to the rest of the gun. Guide the IGL and the battery wire through the hole in the grip, attach the line to the press connector, and 4 M3 screws later, the grip is secured in place. At this point, the build is done. You'll need a battery and a tank to run it, those are your choice. Although I would love to do a price breakdown and a parts list for you guys, some of my parts are mixed and matched, and the 3D file for the upper is designed for a GNG body. The regulator is up to local availability or personal preference. The general parts that I can list here are Gate Pulsar S engine, €400, Max hop-up chamber, around €80, Prometheus barrel, around €50, Max trigger, €28, regulator can be found around €100, and the carbon fiber tube will be €24 on AliExpress. The files that you need to 3D print are ranging from €40 to €50, plus the cost of filament if you have a 3D printer. Otherwise, you can just send it to a 3D printing service, they'll get the job done for you. Altogether with the base gun, this should land under €1,000, and you can still sell the leftover parts from the base gun, like the upper, stock barrel and hop-up chamber, etc. to recoup some of the cost. If you liked the build, let me know by dropping a like, and if you didn't, let me know in the comment section. I would appreciate if you'd subscribe, it motivates me to keep making these videos. Stay tuned in the following weeks, as I have something pretty revolutionary in the HPA game coming soon, you don't want to miss it. See you in the next video.